Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to We Have a Take the What podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, joined as always by Rose Harding. Hello, Rose.
Hi, Tara. How are you doing today?
I'm doing super fantastic, and we have a third joining us today. You all, I'm sure, listen to the wonderful Chris Burkhardt. You can find him as a producer and a host on Rip City Radio, Blazers Game Day, Courtside Monday, The Fifth Quarter. He also has another job working for the OSAA, the Oregon Sports or School Athletic Association, which I am fascinated by, and I'm going to sneak in some questions about that. Welcome to the show, Chris. It's so great to have you.
Oh, it's so good to be here finally. You're returning the favor. We had you on Courtside, which I got a lot of good feedback. People loved that episode. They love the What podcast. So, here I am.
Oh, that's so fun to hear. It was so fun to go into the studio. I felt like such a pro.
Well, you acted like a pro while we did it live. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is that you have like you get the instant feedback because you're doing it live. If you make a mistake, it's just out there. You can't edit it out like we do, and
Mistake. We never make mistakes. What are you talking about?
never,
Yeah.
never.
Just lean into them. My mistakes will get out on air because they do happen. They do happen. I did call Cooper Flag Cooper Cup last week because of my NFL brain took over. So, it happens.
Um, since you're a first time guest, Chris, we usually like to start with an icebreaker.
Okay, let's do it.
Um, and yeah, and so today's icebreaker is, I know it's a little bit early for this one, but I feel like it's worth talking about since playoffs are in everybody's mind. What are you rooting for in the playoffs?
Is it fair to root for a Los Angeles Laker first round exit? I want that thing to blow up because that's no fun. No one wants to like you see all these Laker fans getting mad, like, oh, I can't believe the Bulls posted about beating us. We live rent free in their head. Like, welcome to the social media world in 2025, you losers. Jeez, the world does not revolve around purple and gold. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. A couple people up north there in Washington think it revolves around purple and gold too, and I just can't deal with it. So let me get purple and gold out of the playoffs. That would be good. Secondarily, man, I think it'd be awesome to watch a team. I root for this anytime I can. I think it'd be fun to watch like a team like the Pacers just completely throw everyone for a loop and make a run because it's always fun to root for the guy who hasn't won one before. So that's fun. I want to see the Cavs keep doing good. But man, if there's just one thing I can have in the playoffs, it's an early Los Angeles Laker exit.
I think that's a fair thing to root for, and I don't think you'll be the only one rooting for that.
Like, I mean, come on.
What about you, Tara? What are you rooting for?
Well, I'd love to see a Blazer cutie make it far. So, I'd love to watch the Knicks so we could root for Josh Hart for a long time. I would also, I mean, you and I went to the Cavs game together. Was that the Cavs game we went to together, Rose?
We went to the Grizzlies game
We went
together
to the Grizzlies
recently.
game together. I can't remember. Oh, I went to with my friend Janice to the Cavs game, and we kept going, oh, I like Jared Allen. Oh, like we kept saying all the players that we liked. And so I think it would be fun to watch the Cavs make a run. And also it'd be really fun to watch OKC, except for their, adjacency to the Sonics. Otherwise, it would be fun to watch OKC. But also they've been like kind of favored the whole time. And I like surprises. Oh, I would also not mind if the Golden Warriors did not have the performance that they think that they're going to have.
Yeah, I mean, fair. I also like, I mean, I don't have to tell you, like me over here, Jared Allen, number one fan for, guy center's not on my team and have never been on my team. Um, and I also will be rooting for, I think, Jared Allen. And also, honestly, that's a pretty likable team. I think the Cavs are a likable team. When I like look at them, they're like doing it kind of the hard way, and people have a lot of criticisms about how they have imperfect pieces and like, oh, can Evan Mobley and Jared Allen play together? Is Alex Garland a good enough point guard? Can he play with Donovan Mitchell? But like, I kind of like it when those teams that aren't like perfectly constructed can still put it together and do really well. Those are all really good players. They're all pretty likable, and you know. I guess I would also root for some Blazer cuties. It's weird though, because a lot of like there's a lot of Blazer cuties that are not going to make the playoffs.
I know.
And I'm like, I'm sorry. I know that the Clippers have a lot of Blazer cuties, but I can't root for the Clippers. Like,
To
Yeah.
be fair though, the way Portland has churned through the roster over the last 5 years, like they've sprinkled your Blazer cuties like sprinkles on a donut, man. They're everywhere around the NBA.
That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
if the last few years has given us anything, it is a deep bench of Blazer cuties.
That's right. Shout out Trendon Watford, who didn't he get in a fight this week?
Oh, I think he
Was that,
did.
didn't he got in a fight with Miles Turner, maybe? I think that's right.
I may have missed it, but good for him. Good for him.
Well, Chris,
Um,
it's really great to have you on and to return the favor of you inviting us onto your show. And when we have somebody new the first time, in addition to springing an icebreaker on them, we want to know what your story is. Like, what's your basketball origin story, and how did you get to doing what you're doing today?
My basketball origin story. So I grew up an athlete, football and baseball primarily. I always liked basketball, but being 5 foot nothing, it wasn't my wasn't where I should go. I did play a little bit in middle school. Wasn't good enough to even try out in high school. I said, yeah, I'm gonna skip that. Didn't hit the growth spurt till like senior year where I went from 5 foot to 5 foot nothing. And so, it was hard. But I was an athlete, and my dream, Tara, my dream forever has always been to be a sportscaster. I grew up wanting to work for ESPN. I wanted to be, I wanted to sit next to Stuart Scott. I wanted to be cooler than the other side of the pillow. You know what I'm saying? That's what I wanted to be. And so, yeah, that's what I went to school for. Went to school for journalism communication at the University of Oregon. Go Ducks!
Go
And
Ducks.
yeah, my dream was to be a sports talking head. And it's funny because the industry back at that time, back in my day, podcasts weren't a thing. Social media was still just coming alive. Facebook, you need to have a .edu email just to have an account, right? The old ones remember us OGs, right? So the landscape was still, you got to get in through the front door. Because like I said, now you got podcasts and YouTube, and it's so cool because the ability for people to create their platform is there, and it's awesome. And so I was just grinding, trying to get in, and forever I was like getting turned down. I was running into you have to have experience to get this job. I'm like, well, then how am I gonna get experience if you don't hire me for this entry level job as a sportscaster in Boise, Idaho? Like this, come on now, what are we doing? So I set my goal. I'm like, okay, if I'm 30 years old and I don't have a job in this business, I'm gonna punt on my dream, right? So I just kept grinding, and then Comcast Sports Northwest had a job opening, applied for it, didn't get it. Didn't get it. I was like, no. And then it opened up. They hired another spot, the exact same spot, 6 months later. And since I was already in, I applied again and I got it. And that's where it started. That was my in. I was 28 years old. And I was just the part-time pull clips and post in the social to help us out. So if you guys remember the show Outdoor GPS, I would sit in the office and just watch Outdoor GPS and pull clips about like bass fishing, something I know nothing about, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gotta grind. And then eventually, like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna push you and this other guy that we hired. We're gonna make you our Trailblazers producers, and he's gonna go to some of the games. You're gonna go to some of the games. It was just home games at that point, which I still hold resentment to my boss at the time because the one day he gave me off was Dame's .9 shot over Houston. I was at home and missed it. I listened to the great Brian Wheeler on the call because I moved into my new house, Sarah. And if they won that game, then my boss was going to let me go on the road trip to San Antonio because he couldn't make it. So I was like, my first road trip, they need to win. And they won. I freaked out. My wife thought I was hurt. She's like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing. The Blazers won. It was awesome. And so from there I just kept grinding. Eventually got promoted to full time. And since I was entrenched already with them, my boss was like, hey, Blazers are your focus now. I don't need you to do Ducks. Don't need to do anything else. So I was doing Beavers for a little bit too. And that's where my true passion probably for the NBA grew because I like the NBA. I grew up a Blazer fan, like, most people who grew up in this city did. But I was still like baseball is my favorite sport, still is. But man, through covering the Blazers, I'm like, the NBA, it's amazing. And I love it. And so, 10 years later, here I am, lucky enough to still be doing it because the company that originally hired me folded. It no longer exists. And rest in peace to NBC Sports Northwest, Talking Ball, Rip City Live. Those were amazing. But no, and so here we are, still getting to do what I love. And I'm very fortunate, Tara, because as I was talking to Chad doing my boss here the other day, I was like, man, like if this radio station folded tomorrow, I've been lucky enough to have my own radio show. I had my own TV show for a minute. Like I lived my dream. And there was a point where I was about to punt on it because I didn't know I was ever going to get it because it's so hard to get in. And so, yeah, that's the short story of why I'm here, how I'm here, and how I never want to let go of covering the Blazers because it's so fun. It's so fun. So I love it.
That's amazing. You're like the Wop Reith of sportscasting because you got in at like 28.
27-year-old sports journalist rookie. Like, here we go. Here we go. Hopefully people like me as much as they liked WAP.
So you said you grew up a Blazer fan. Did you get to go to games when you were a kid? Do you have a particular team that kind of like started your Blazer journey?
Great question. Didn't get to go to a lot of games as a kid, but watched them on TV all the time. I think my first game had to be high schoolish, and I remember it was against the Clippers. It was back when Chris Kaman was their starting center and was still rocking his surfer hair, like young rookie Chris Kaman, right? But I was born in the mid 80s. So I was 6, 7 years old when the NBA finals teams and Clyde Drexler were around. You remember them, you know who they are, but they didn't like form my memories. Like my memories of like my true Blazer fandom started with the late 90s with Damon Stoudemire, Rasheed Wallace, Bonzi Wells, Arvydas Sabonis, right? Rasheed Wallace to this day, probably my favorite NBA player of all time. I love Rasheed Wallace. And so that was where it started. I still, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but my fandom, I don't like Sean Elliott tiptoeing the 3-point line over the outstretched arm of Rasheed Wallace. I don't like Kobe lobbing to Shaquille O'Neal. Like, you know what I'm saying? The plays that Blazer fans hate. But no, that was my fandom. That was my fandom. In fact, it was funny because the Blazers did the glasses this year, the glassware. And I remember back in the day, that was a Dairy Queen thing. And you could go in, you could get your glasses, and then you could also enter to win a Blazers grand prize. And it was like, have a Blazer come to your school. I didn't win, but someone at my school did. Pleasant Valley Elementary, shout out. And so young rookie Jermaine O'Neal came to our school. And you should have seen the look on the eyes of a bunch of kindergartners through sixth graders looking up at a dude who was 7 feet tall. And oh my gosh, I still have the picture because he gave everyone an autographed picture. Well, he autographed one for the kid who won, and then they photocopied about 500 copies of it. So I still have my photocopied autograph from Jermaine O'Neal hiding somewhere. But yeah, it was all that, man. That was what grew that Blazer fandom, and then it stuck, like most of us, because once the jail Blazer era ended, and the Blazers weren't good, you're like, I'm sticking through this. We're gonna get this, and then you got Brandon Roy and LaMarcus, and they're like, you know how good you are for me to love Brandon Roy. I was like, you know how good you are for me to put my hatred for the Huskies away and just enjoy everything about you. Thank you so much, Brandon Roy. And yeah, it's like from that point on, it's just Rip City, and it's just never wavered.
That's amazing. So would you say that Rasheed was your first favorite Blazer, or is he just sort of like your all-time favorite Blazer?
Oh my gosh, he might be my first favorite, and then also just an all-timer. I also was a very, very big fan of Mighty Mouse because he was a short king, okay? And I like my short kings. They make me feel good about myself. I used to peruse the NFL rosters, Rose, and this is almost embarrassing. But I used to peruse the NFL rosters as a kid, and I'd go, "Oh, that guy's only 5'6". I have a chance to make it into the league." And you go, "Hey, there are 3 players in the NFL right now who are 5'6". I can make it." Like that was my life. So when you get little Damon Stoudemire in town, plus the local connection, Wilson High School now, Ida B. Wells. Yeah, I love Mighty Mouse.
Yeah. I mean, what a great answer, because also he was like Portland playing for Portland.
Okay.
And it's whenever somebody from here gets to play here, it always feels like super special.
Always.
I feel like that's got to be hard too. I was actually just listening to a podcast with Terrell Brandon in preparation for an episode Rose and I will be running out later. And that was really fascinating to listen to him and his journey around the NBA. But he wasn't tall either. And I completely forgot about the fact that he was like 5'11". And I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, one can dream. I can dream to be 5'11".
Did you, when you were covering the Blazers for NBC Sports Northwest, did you travel to go to away games?
It took a few years, but yeah. So that first year with the team, I did get to go to that San Antonio playoff game. And then there was a guy above me, a dear friend of mine who I was friends with him before I got working there. Ironically enough, we were in the same classes at the University of Oregon. That's how we met. But he was the primary producer traveling with the team. And he was just getting tired of it. He's like, that's a lot of time on the road. I'm exhausted. And so they started slowly pawning off the 1 game trips onto me. So I start going 1 game to Utah, 1 game to Denver. And then as the years went on, he's like, here, you can have this 2 game trip. You can have this 3 game trip. I'm like, hey, how about you give me that 5 game trip? I want to go. And so by the end of it, yeah, I was our primary road producer. So I was traveling with the team all around and to every single NBA arena. I've been to every NBA arena except for Houston, because unfortunately the 2 times I was scheduled for Houston, we had some life events come up. So I had to reschedule. But I can also put the feather in the cap that I've been to I have been to Oracle and I've been to Sleep Train Arena, which no longer exists. And I watched a Blazer game up at the Rogers Arena in Vancouver. So, I've been
Oh,
well
that's
traveled
cool.
NBA arenas.
I forgot about Sleep Train Arena, and like it was like a brand. It was like a mattress brand, I
Oh,
think.
yeah. Yep.
It's but like as an adult now that I've had a child, I'm like I thought that like it seems like it should be advocating for sleep training your child so you can get them out of your bedroom.
I know, joke. I feel like you're speaking to me right now. Like, what are we doing? Wake up in the middle of the night because my daughter has climbed in the bed, and for some reason, the children don't understand the like how you have to sleep vertically.
No.
They for some reason they get into the bed and horizontal
Yeah.
feels better. And next thing you know, you're taking like a 6-year-old's heel to the rib, and if you look over and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, they're snoring. They have no idea that they have kicked you in the rib and woke you up. But here you are.
Yeah. The urge of a 3-year-old to make an H, you know, with across their parents. Um, okay, so I am really curious about the job. Like, what is the job of a producer, especially on the road, entail? Because I imagine there's a lot and it's not easy. But what kinds of things do you do when you're traveling to cover the team?
Well, when I was on the road with NBC, I was in charge of all of our social and digital media as the digital media producer, which, it's the same like with the news stations, right? They always hire multimedia producers, which is a cheesy way of saying we're going to make you do the job of 4 people but pay you for one. That's what it is. So I did all of our social media and digital media. So if you were following NBC at the time, if there was a highlight on our social account, that was me pulling it. But I was also mainly responsible for making sure our live hits were up. So if you were watching Rip City Live or Talking Ball after the game and you saw either Chris Haynes or Jason Quick or Dwight or Jamie, one of our insiders, doing their live hit courtside in, Madison Square Garden, my job was to get that set up, get the live feed up, make sure it was set back to Portland. I would do the same thing in the locker room. I had this little thing, it's called a DeGero, and it was about the size of a lunch pail, maybe a little bigger, but it was wireless and it had cell cards in it and you could plug into the internet, but that was what sent the signal back to Portland. And so I would run into the locker room as soon as they opened it, find an Ethernet port, plug in, get everything set up, and then I'd have like my 100-foot cord just going everywhere, watching it like a hawk, making sure like CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard didn't trip on my my cable and break a hip or something, and then I'm the guy just with an egg on his face. But that was my job, was sitting there getting all those live shots from the locker room back to Portland for the post-game show, all of our live hits with our producers back to Portland for the post-game show, and then writing articles that we had to do, and then getting on an airplane and doing it again the next night.
Amazing.
That's
fun.
so much work.
Oh, it was a lot of work. Nothing, better than you're plugged in. You have your power, your internet, and all of a sudden it gets unplugged, or you have to move. Like story time with Chris Burkhardt. This is a good story, especially since the Blazers are in New York. So you got to be careful in New York, right? Madison Square Garden and LA, a lot of Clippers and Lakers back there at Crypto. Those are the 2 hardest arenas to work out of because they both protect, even though Hollywood is LA, still a lot of filming and stuff going on in New York. So they protect the film industry, and the unions are very, very, very strict, right? So, like in Los Angeles, you cannot plug in your power to the wall or plug in your internet without a union rep. And if you don't have a union rep, they freak out. I learned that the hard way when a union rep unplugged my equipment when I was doing a live hit with you guys. I'm sure you know Ian Carmel. I was doing a live hit with Ian Carmel, and I run into the locker room to check on the post game presser because it was the playoffs against the Clippers. So I was setting up Doc Rivers presser. I come back, and as I come out, Ian Carmel is getting in an argument with one of their union guys, and I lose it because I am 30 seconds to air, and he has unplugged my internet and my power. And I almost got kicked out of Staples Center that night because I was not happy. New York, same way. I didn't ever get kicked out, but you started to learn that you had to travel with like your battery. If your lights were battery operated or your DeGero was battery operated, which luckily we were, and your camera, if you were battery operated, you were fine. But if you had to physically plug into any of their stuff, union had to be with you. And I've heard horror stories about, about to go live and then the union would take their break and you can't do anything with, because, yeah, crazy. So sucks. But I get why you got to protect this huge industry, right? But that's not the story, okay? We're going to probably going to go a little past 12:30 and I'm fine with it. But here's the deal. This is one of my favorite stories because of how embarrassing it is, but how good it is too. We're in Brooklyn, okay? The Barclays Center. Brooklyn, awesome spot if you've never been, by the way. It's just like the movies, you walk out the hotel, there's your mini marts and all the stuff, the schools, it's all cool. And so we were walking from our hotel to Barclays Center. It's about a mile. Get there, do the game and all that. This me and Jason Quick was our insider at the time. Well, he's in the locker room. I leave. I'm like, hey, we're about 10 minutes to our live hit. I'm going to go set up. Okay, cool. So I go set up. I did something you're usually not supposed to do. I felt like we were comfortable. I was wrong. I plugged in my power and my internet into the scores table. The reason that's a no-no is because that often gets unplugged because they're doing a turnover. They happen to be doing a turnover that night for hockey the next day. So one of their guys comes up to me, very, very nice. He's like, excuse me. I'm like, what's that? He's like, how long are you guys going to be here? We have to tear this down for hockey. I'm like, well, I got a live hit in about 10 minutes. And he's like, oh, yeah, if you were doing it right now, I'd let you, but I do have to tear this down. And I'm like, you know what? Totally understandable. I know where there's another hard line and an Ethernet port because, and as a producer, you got to have A, B, C, D. You got to have your plans, right? I know it's under the bleachers on the wall. I do not have time, Tara and Rose, to run all the way across the arena, back through the hallway to the door that I know exists to plug in because I could just throw the cables in and do that. I don't have time. The only thing I have to do is army crawl under, the 12-inch gap under the bleachers to get there. So I do. I army crawl. I'm going through. I'm like, I really hope this is like Diet Coke that I'm going through because it is sticky and this is gross, right? And the bleachers are hollow underneath. So I'm crawling. I finally get to a spot where I can kind of sit up and I crouch up and all I hear is I rip my jeans from crotch to ankle. I mean, wide open, right? So I go in and I plug all my stuff back in. And then I hear Jason. He comes out. He sees my tripod on my camera and he's like, Burkhardt, where are you? Where are you? I'm like, I'm under the bleachers. He's like, what are you doing under the bleachers? I'm like, don't worry about it. And so I come out under the bleachers. He's just laughing. And then he looks down at my pants. He's just like, what the fuck happened? And I'm like, I ripped my pants. He's like, well, obviously. And so there I am filming a live shot with Jason Quick on the court at Barclays Center with nothing being left to the imagination because my jeans are ripped. And keep in mind, we walked to the arena that night. So I have to walk back to the hotel through Brooklyn with just my jeans just ripped to shreds in the most embarrassing yet awesome story that I have from the road. The time I ripped my pants, like SpongeBob SquarePants, right? Because I ripped my pants. Like that was it, and I will never forget it.
Oh my God, Chris. Of course you walk because it's Brooklyn. Everybody walks everywhere.
Everybody does. The city's built for walking. What's the worst that could happen? You could blow your pants out. That's what could happen.
Or you could consider yourself a trendsetter because everybody's running around with ripped up pants these days.
Right.
I gotta be honest. I've spent quite a bit of time in both like New York, in Manhattan, and Brooklyn, and I've definitely seen probably more nudity on the street than that. So if that makes you feel better.
Well, it makes me feel better a little bit, but still, this was my little Oregonian mind. I'm just like, okay, this is awesome. This is awesome. I mean, like, I'm not going to get mugged on the way home because there's like, well, he obviously has nowhere to keep anything. I mean, I can see everything. There's no wallet there. We're good. Like it was something else. Jason is just like laughing the entire time, and I'm just like, well, yep, this is a good one. It's a good story.
That
I hope
was
you kept
amazing.
the pants.
No, I did not. I did not. I could have put them up on the wall as like, framed them, kind of like they did at Oracle, where they framed the hole in the wall that Dirk punched in the locker room. I could have done that.
It's amazing.
Did you ever tell that story on Blazers Outsiders?
Oh, I'm sure I have. I've told it. A lot of people know it. Maybe this is the first time I've told it on air, but it's just what a time. What a time.
Well, so with regards to being on the road, how much time, I mean, I imagine like you're you're around the players a lot because you're getting things set up and everything. I'm not fishing for salacious stories, but what I'm fishing for is players who like you've seen be like extra accommodating, helpful, thoughtful, kind, with the folks who are supporting by like broadcasting the work that they do.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, unfortunately, I haven't been around this team as much because I don't travel with this team. But in my time traveling, I mean, obviously, Damian Lillard was always great. Had some very good conversations with him, just sitting at a shoot around, no camera, and hey, let's just talk wrestling for a minute. And he would just sit down and talk and have fun. He was great. And I always found CJ McCollum to be pretty gracious with his time as well. And I always like that. I have a soft spot for Myers Leonard because he was one of the kinder guys that we ever had to deal with. One of the few who took the time to actually remember who I was. So you'd walk into a locker room and be like, "Hey, Chris, how you doing?" I always appreciated that. I would say the good part, Tara, is I can't think of many people who were not gracious with the media, especially who came through Portland. Now, there was times where certain people didn't want to talk and they had their reasons, but like I can only think of like maybe like one or two guys who were kind of cranky the whole time. Like Aaron Aflalo didn't want to be in Portland. You could tell that he was kind of cranky, but everyone else was great. Like Nurk was always great. Ed Davis was great. Al-Farouq Aminu, even though every answer was, I love Al-Farouq Aminu. I know he's your little butterfly, but like I love like yeah, like we hit a lot of shots or whatever the case might be. Like, like he would use whatever the case might be, but it made no sense. Like, yeah, I shot 2 for 8 or whatever the case might be. Like, what? What? But he was always so good with his time, so fun. So yeah, it's a good question, and I think Portland's been pretty fortunate because they haven't had a lot of, regardless of the output on the court, they haven't had a lot of people who come in who aren't gracious with the media and gracious with their time. And I always love Dame in particular because I think when so many people want to battle with the media, I think Dame understood the importance of the media at the same time and how you present yourself with the media can help build your brand just as much as you build your own brand on the side. And he used it to his advantage and was always great. Like he would sit there and sometimes you'd sit there and you do an interview with Nurk and it'd be done in a minute 30. So you wouldn't have a lot to say. And then you sit there with Dame and you're like, my arm is hurting for 10 minutes into this interview. Like you could have cut us off a long time ago, but he was always great. I always remember a non-Blazer, another story time. I always found it funny because for a time I also was responsible for the visiting locker room on home games. Right. And so I was in the Memphis locker room, which simultaneously had the most gracious and the least gracious person on the same roster because Zach Randolph, after every question, would try to push through the media to get out. And then someone would ask a question and he'd be pissed off and he'd roll his eyes and he'd answer it, but he was just so cranky. And then Mark Gasol, in one of my favorite stories of all time, is I'm interviewing him one-on-one. Everyone, all the other media had left and I'm interviewing one-on-one. And their PR guy is kind of being rude. He's like, hurry it up. We got a bus to catch. Hurry it up the whole time. And he's like, last question. Hurry up. We got a bus to catch. And Mark Gasol looks at me and he goes, hold on 1 second, please. And he looks at his PR guy and he goes, let him do his job. I'll get on the bus in a second. And then he looks at me, a guy he's never met, and he goes, ask me however many questions you need. I only had one more question, so I asked it. But I was like, I will never forget this. I'm the visiting media. A lot of people are standoffish with the visiting media because they haven't built that relationship, right? But when he looked at, he's like, no, do your job. Don't listen to him. I was like, you're a good dude. I appreciate you.
The Gasol seem like nice guys.
Powell was really good. He was really good in the short time he was here. Obviously, I think the only time we actually interviewed him was that preseason game they played at VMC, and he didn't even play. But the fans got to shower him with appreciation when they announced the entire roster. But he was good in the few interviews we got to do. Like he would sit there and just talk your ear off, man. So yeah, both those guys, the Gasol brothers, are pretty awesome.
That's amazing. I appreciate the players that know that like they're doing their job and also you're doing your job. Everyone's there because they have a job to do.
Absolutely.
And it's easy to forget that for some folks.
Right. And so you got to understand like the the context of where certain things are. I remember we had a boss for a minute at that old place of employment who didn't necessarily know what they were doing. And she asked me one night, she goes, hey, the game is over. And again, I'm going in the visiting locker room. She goes, hey, can you ask James Harden what he listens to on his headphones pregame? And I said, no. She's like, why not? I'm like, you can go into the post-game locker room after the Rockets lost and ask one of the grumpiest interviews in the league what they listen to on their headphones pregame. You can do that if you really want that answer. I'm not taking that bullet. Some people you just know. Yeah, I'm not asking that question.
That's probably where your expertise is like really, really valuable for like, protecting yourself from like vitriol and whatever, like knowing who you're interviewing, knowing kind of what their disposition is, how they like their questions, how they don't. Some people probably really appreciate certain kinds and really don't appreciate other kinds. And
Well, you got to understand too, because like you still run into it even nowadays, and it cracks me up. Like you'll hear a question asked to Coach Billups, and you're like, that respectfully, that is a pregame question. Like there are questions you learn after a while. Like there are questions to be asked pregame and there are questions to be asked postgame. Like sometimes I'm just like, oh, didn't think that one through, guy.
Would it be giving away important secrets if you told us a little bit more about that? What's good for pregame and what's good for postgame?
No. It's really simple. I mean, it's more like, okay, when you're asking the questions that don't pertain to the game, like sometimes, like, oh, coach, like, what's your message to the team and what's your pregame meal? Like, what's your pregame ritual? That's not a postgame question. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that's been asked, but like you have similar type questions, and that's it. Like, coach does not want to answer that question after he just lost a basketball game, right?
So post game, very focused on just the game that happened.
Very pro. Post game is focused on the game or what lies ahead. If you, hey, coach, you hit the road for a 5-game road trip. What's your expectation? What's your philosophy? What's your message to the guys after taking this tough loss before getting on the road? Like that makes sense. But like I said, oh, coach, good game today. But when you go on the road, like, what do you like to eat before the game? Yeah, ask that in the pregame when coach is unbuttoned a little bit and everything's relaxed. Like there's a time and a place. That's a shoot around question too. Like shoot around. Ask me what my favorite color is. Like that's the time you ask that question. You don't ask that in a post-game press conference. I don't know. This is like a Major League Baseball unwritten rule, by the way. Like this is not a real rule. This is a Major League Baseball unwritten rule, and I'm the old guard on that.
it's a read the room type question too, right? Like
Yes,
because all of the other questions are probably going to pertain to like kind of the stuff you just talked about. And so for you to like throw out a question that is like wildly off topic is probably not you reading the room.
No, that is the best way of putting it, right? And sometimes you'll get into situations where it's like I'm always afraid too, so I'm like not afraid, but like I'll be like respectfully, like I'm doing a lot post game, right? Like I'm getting all our social stuff done. I'm like, if I happen to miss a question, like okay, I'm not going to ask one today because I don't want to be the guy who asked the same question that was just asked, right? And that happens sometimes because the guy's not paying attention and is not focused, and you're like, oh no, like you said again. Read the room a little bit. Understand your own situation, your strengths and weaknesses. I don't want to end up, like I said, egg on my face. I don't want to do that.
I think
That's
that would
just good
be one of the,
business.
yeah, I think that would be one of the hardest things if I was trying to do the job, even with all the training needed to even do it, would be I would be so afraid to ask the wrong question.
I'm not gonna lie. It took time to get over that fear of asking the wrong question. And to be fair, I think Portland was lucky because Terry was pretty good with media. And I actually for all the negative pub he gets, Chauncey's not bad at all. Chauncey will answer any question and he'll give you a thoughtful answer, which I appreciate. I remember one time we were doing the visitors and it was Greg Popovich. And you want to talk about being scared as like a first year in the biz. I remember someone asked like, "Hey, that fourth quarter, you guys blew your lead or whatever. Could you talk about what happened?" And Popovich just looks at this guy and goes, "Talk about? You want me to talk about it? That's not even a question. You just want me to talk about stuff? Come on." And I'm just like, I was like, okay, well, I just puckered a little bit and I'm definitely not asking a question for the rest of this press conference because yeah, you just scared me. Thank you.
That's that's amazing that you have been able to like do this for as long as you have. I'm curious if you could talk about what's different for you from TV going to radio. Because now you do radio and you like some of the things that you used to do are not part of what you do, and you have to convey so much more with like just your voice.
Well, yeah, it's fun. I don't think there's that much of a difference. TV, the only difference is like TV, like, all right, okay, look at the TV screen or look at this graphic we have, and or you can toss to a highlight package and you actually get to watch the video or show the video. Like we do that on the post game show, like we play highlights here and there, but highlights don't do well on a non-visual format. Like you got to be able to, you want to see Shaden Sharp jump 20 feet in the air, right? You want to see that. So that's the difference is playing off of the other visuals that you have and being able to be more visually active. Like I know on Outsiders, we were try to be very visual. And like I'm a hand mover and a talker and I love to be just around. And so you get to convey that and use those other emotions and other tactics to convey your message a little bit. But when it comes to talking about what you're the basketball game, that doesn't change at all. Like you're just whether I'm in the radio studio or on TV, they don't like I can't see the audience. I don't know if there's one person listening or a million people listening. So I'm just going to A, bring the energy as if it's a million people listening no matter what. And B, just talk about the game. That doesn't change too much at all. I think the only thing that does change is TV is much more buttoned up to the fact that your hard timelines and your commercials and everything else. Like yes, radio has that, but TV is just dialed in. So you have your segments, segment one, and the A, B, C, D, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and that's dialed in. As where radio is like segment one is 13 minutes long. Fill it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the difference is this radio is not as buttoned up and to the point as TV can be.
Have you considered, wanted, or actually done any play-by-play or commentary at any level?
So I've not done play by play. Play by play is tough. That's a skill. And shout out to Travis because he nails it. There's some prep goes in there. I have done commentary though, and it is fun. It is fun. A couple years ago here at Rip City Radio, we had a guy who was really into that. Shout out Preston Highfield. And so he was contacting ADs and stuff. And he and I were doing football games, and then we were doing basketball games through state championships. And I got to call the state championship game a few years ago, both men's and girls, and it was so flipping fun. And commentary, I think, is it's a lot easier because my job as the commentator is I'm just going to watch the game. You're going to call it. I'm going to listen to what you say. I'm going to wait for you to toss me, and I'm just going to tell you what I saw in that play that broke down, and have so much fun doing it. And yeah, that's cool. The fun part was we were doing high school, right? And then I don't know how Preston did this. It's because he's a hustler. He convinced Portland State to let us come do a game. So we did a game on Rip City Radio. It was Portland State versus Sacramento State up at the Pavilion. And that was wild because even though it was just Portland State and Sacramento State, which respectfully weren't great teams, whoa, the jump in skill from calling a high school game to calling just the college level and realizing how much faster of a game it was and how much more skilled it was. it was a lot harder to call that game as a color commentator. But no, so I have done a few games though. Like I said, play by play is a whole different ballgame. Your research and knowing your rosters and everything. I would love to try it though. I would definitely love to try it. But color commentary, it is a blast if you ever get a chance to do it.
So cool. It also gives me a great appreciation for what Kevin Calabro does in play-by-play because he does it like very seamlessly as a pro. He has like those kind of phrases that we hear a lot, but like we all know what they mean now. And I think, from hearing his voice for as many years as we have, like we're just very lucky to have someone who's so good at conveying visually what's happening in the game. Like you can tell that he can also call on radio. Some people, some of the regional play-by-play people, because I watch a lot of League Pass, they're not all as gifted as Kevin is at describing the game. Like if I turn my head away from the TV and I listen to him speak, I can still generally understand what's happening in the game, and that would not be true on like more than half of probably the regional broadcasts.
Oh, and the skill that he and Lamar possess that not a lot of play-by-play guys do, quite honestly. It's when it's a blowout, whether it's the Blazers winning by 50 or losing by 50, and you have to fill dead air or make it listenable because you want to make sure people don't tune out because the game has gotten boring. They make you want to listen. They make you want to listen. They keep you attached, whether it's through their little side stories or their playful banter back and forth. I mean, come on, like Lamar has made a talent out of making a wedgie fun, right? like their banter back and forth is so good, and that's a skill that not a lot of play-by-play guys and color commentators possess. It's like that's why I think like a baseball is by far the hardest sport to call play-by-play for because
It's
slow. You call a pitch, then there's like a 30-second break in action before the next pitch, and you have to. That's why you're like, yeah, and he winds up, and there's the pitch. Fastball outside. It's 75 degrees here this beautiful day in Seattle. Wind blowing in from the south at 5 miles an hour. I can smell the hot dogs and the garlic fries, and section 113 looks like they're having a hell of a time, and a curveball for strike one. What a beautiful day. Keep in mind that the Mariners hit the road next week for a 5-game trip. Like they're just like mixing up a bunch of things that have nothing to do with it's so hard to do. And so again, when Casey and Lamar get on their banters and just have fun, it really shows how skilled they are.
That was pretty darn good, I have to say. Well, so speaking of making you want to listen, I could listen to your stories all day, but I want to take a little bit of time to talk about what we are going to be listening to and watching these last few games because the season is just about over. I don't know, there's like 7 or 8 games left as of today, Sunday, the 30th. So what are you thinking about? What do you think you're going to watch for as the season wraps up? And what are you hoping for?
Well, I'm just hoping for good basketball to continue. I think like that game in Sacramento felt weird because I felt like that was the first time in a while we've seen a bad Blazer performance. You look at that entire homestand, right? I thought even the game against Boston and Cleveland, you got beat by 2 teams that are championship contenders, right? And I thought that you gave them every punch you had. You played a good basketball game, and the rest just happened. Sacramento was a weird one because it wasn't the same level, but it felt a little bit more like those Utah, Memphis, Golden State games where the team just didn't show up. So my personal thing that I'm looking for is the next 8 games. Show up. Who's going to show up? Who's going to show you they want it? Who's going to differentiate themselves? Who's going to show you that they're part of the future? And I think there's a lot of guys on this team who have done that already, but can still show more over the next 8 games in the offseason. Now, unfortunately, Scoot's not playing. He's in concussion protocol. We'll see how many games he misses. But like, I want to see Shaedon Sharpe go off. Like I love Shea. I think he can be a star. I just haven't seen him do it yet. Like we've seen the games where he scores a lot and this, that, but I want to see him put together that complete game where you say Shaedon Sharpe has arrived, right? That's what I want to see. I want to see Donovan Clingan do some things over the next 8 games. Be aggressive offensively. Like you're 7 foot tall. Like play like it. Stop playing like you're 6'9". Like go like there is no excuse in my book that every single time you get a defensive rebound, you shouldn't go straight vertical and just slam that ball down the rim. Like just Shaquille O'Neal style. Go watch his highlights. Rebound, jump, jam. Lather, rinse, repeat, right? Little things like that I want to see. And then I think this is a great opportunity to really get some good run out of, because you know what, like quite frankly, it could be their last 8 games. So I think you get a good run out of Delano Banton, get a fat run out of Jabari Walker, get a huge run out of Chris Murray, and see what you got, and see if these are guys that you want to try to protect, or these guys that are going to be they're free agents and you're not bringing them back, or they're guys you're going to try to add to trade, whatever it is. Figure out what you got, because this offseason is big time. You got moves to make. Otherwise, you're just spinning those tires in the mud. So that's what I want to see. And unfortunately, the concussion protocol we've seen can take some time to get out of, right? So I would hope that Scoot doesn't miss the rest of the year. I would hope he gets back in and doesn't miss that many games. And if that's the case, if he does get back in the lineup, I think it's just wave the white flag on Ant. I want to just, hey, you know what? Let's take the rest of the year off. I want to see Scoot go out there and play 40 minutes. Just do it. Just what are you like in the starting lineup next to Shea, to Denny, and Klingon, the guys that we think may be the starting lineup of the future, and just see what you got right now. I said this earlier. It doesn't make sense to me. Why wait until October to start building chemistry with the next core? Start doing it now.
Once upon a time, we also saw Ant play 47 of 48 minutes at the end of a season against the Kings. And I remember Stotts saying after that game that he regretted sitting him for that 1 minute. So he like couldn't say that he played the entire game, but he went off, I remember, at the end, and all the players were super hyped for him. And now we're at the point where like he's a big enough guy where we're like, oh no, but what about sitting Ant now so that other guys can have their chance to play their 47 minutes or whatever.
Exactly. Kind of crazy how the world turns, right?
I'll just say, even if it's the last we see of Scoot, I'm just so pleased to see the way he has like made a big leap this year and had a good opportunity to like show what he can do and to be reminded of why he was a top 3 draft pick. So like even if it's the last we see of him, I'm not disappointed with the season we saw out of him. And I will say, like, for myself at least, like I'm glad that they're taking being careful with his brain, because we saw that one year where like was it last year where Jeremy Grant had like a concussion after a year before that he had another concussion, and it can be really dangerous. So I'm glad that they're like taking care of
especially
it.
with what we know about CT and concussions nowadays. They're not fun. I have had one in my entire life, and it sucks. It is not fun to deal with. That's why you see those guys. People don't think about it, but that's why a lot of those guys, they get on concussion protocol and you don't even see them in the arena. Like, just being in the arena with the loud noises, the lights, it's enough to just make you want to curl into a ball. Like, it is not fun. So you're absolutely right. I'm glad they're taking their time there. And I'm glad you mentioned that Scoot's shown improvement, because my biggest beef with Scoot takes is it's not Scoot Henderson's fault that he was drafted third, right? The Blazers drafted him third. They saw something in him, they took him. And why wait? If that's the guy you want, do it. They took that risk. I think he lives with the unfair expectations because A, he was drafted third, but B, the Damian Lillard trade. And because he plays the same position, he's automatically cast in that shadow. And if you put him in the grand scheme of like third overall picks, it's like, yeah, he's so. But when you look at him and you break down his numbers for a second year point guard, his numbers are really freaking good. He's top amongst sophomore guards in many categories, among guards coming off the bench, which again, he's a bench guard right now. He's not your starter. He is top half of the league, like top 10 in many categories. Like, he's a very, very good bench point guard right now who has shown the ability to get better, because you look at last year to this year, huge jump. You look at November to March this year and a huge jump, because he was slow out of the gate. And that's all you want with your guy who literally, a month and a half ago was finally old enough to drink. Like, let's put that in perspective, right? The kid's young. He is a kid still. And so as long as he keeps progressing and showing that, I mean, you want to hope he makes the big year 3 jump next year and continues to get better. And I think he can, because he's shown flashes of some really good play. And I'd like that people are acknowledging it.
Well said. I'll say this is the first year that not compared to last year, I'll say that Tara and I were really talking about Scoot and seeing the path forward on him, instead of talking about it with like people who just have faith, because we hadn't seen it yet. And now I think we can see like how he can become that starting point guard for us, whereas before we were like, we believe he can, but we haven't seen what that will look like yet. And I'll say, like, for me this year, as soon as I saw his shot arrive, I was like, oh well, game on.
All right. It's night and day. It's night and day. And it's like, even the shots, like, The other night he started the day 8 or the day 0 for 8, but the shots looked good. And coach, that's something that a coach will say post game too. Like I liked the shots he had. I liked our looks, right? You hear that all the time. But you look at his shot and they were good and they weren't missing by much. It's just it's right there. And again, he's getting better. And the shot looks better from last year. The base is what I watch. Watch his legs. When he gets his legs really under him, square to the hoop, he tends to hit the shot. When he's a little out of position, the shot tends to go awry. So those are little things that you can work on in the offseason. And again, he's had one actual NBA offseason, so we'll see what the second one does. And I would hope by October he's a legit starter.
I'm curious to watch how, and probably he doesn't, I don't know that he's going to have enough time in the next 8 games, but going into next season with Scoot, I'm curious to watch how he gets everybody else involved because that's like such, a key part of obviously being a point guard. And we've had, prior to Scoot, we had 1 decade of one specific type of player. And I remember watching Damian all those years, he would kind of like the first half of the game, he would do a lot of feeling out how everybody was doing, figuring out who's the hot hand. And then in the second half is when Damian would like come on, like if he needed to come on and just really start scoring. He would do it earlier if he really needed to, but he really spent a lot of time figuring out where everybody was that night. So I'm really interested to see, and I feel like Scoot's going to be pretty good at that same type of feeling out his teammates, who's got the hot hand, who needs it, like all those, DeAndre Ayton gets the first play. You just remember all those Yusuf Nurkic gets the first play
Right.
and how Scoot is able to manage that and get the buy-in and support and the best play out of his teammates.
No, absolutely. And the little things he says too that show you that's the type of player he is. Like it was a couple of weeks ago where he had a good game. He had like 6 assists, and then post game he's like, "Yeah, I think I missed some opportunities. I could have got my teammates involved more." Like you did a pretty good job getting them involved, but that's what he was not focused on his points. He was focused on how he could get the team involved more. And I'm not putting him in this category, but I'm going to use 2 Hall of Fame names, and that's Jason Kidd and Chris Paul. And Chris Paul specifically, because that guy could light up a scoreboard if he needed to, but he never needed to be the team's top scorer. He was always setting the team up and getting everyone going. And then when they needed him to score was when he'd get a bucket. And you look at Jason Kidd, like Jason Kidd was like, what, a career like 15 points per game, but the dude lit it up in the assists, right? He was always setting his team up. And I think Scoot is built a little bit more in that set the team up and scoring is my secondary thought, right? Unless I need to, and then I'll be more aggressive when you need me to. And that's why if you get certain pieces on the team to take that next step, if Shaedon Sharpe takes that next step and he is a legit, Tracy McGrady type, which is I think always say Tracy because he reminds me of a rookie Tracy McGrady. But if he plays like that, where he's an all-star caliber shooting guard, and you continue to get the 3 and D out of Tumani, you get the good shooting out of Denny and all that, then you have guys that Scoot can set up and it plays to his strengths, right? So that's what I see from him. I don't think he ever needs to be a 20 and 10 type guy, but if he's a 15 and 10 type guy with good shooters around him, you got yourself a damn good point guard, and you got to just build around him properly.
I have to say, I love watching him and Shaedon be able to finish at the
Yes.
rim. That is
Yes.
like a thing of beauty that has just blossomed
Oh, yeah.
the last couple of months.
Better this year when, again, you talk about the jumps from early year to this year, because one of my biggest gripes with him early on was like he would jump at about the free throw line, and then midway in the air, okay, am I going for a layup or am I passing the ball? Which one am I doing? Like that decision should have been made long before you jumped, right? And now he's jumping with purpose and he has a plan. And sometimes he makes the shot, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes the pass gets intercepted, what have you, but he has that plan. It's no longer guessing. And that leads to good things down the road. And because I said this the other day on the post-game show, Tara, because it's interesting. Because when Scoot has a 6 turnover game, right? Oh, he's being terrible with the ball. He needs to be better, blah, blah. When Denny has an 8 turnover game, nobody really talks about it, right? It's the expectation of this guy needs to be really, really good. Again, I think he is really good. He's just making second-year guy mistakes that I totally think are fixable in the long run.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Rose, should we move to our question that we got?
Yeah. So if I remember, I try to ask our listeners if they have any questions for us ahead of recording. We did get one question today. This is from Keanu underscore Reeve books. Their picture is Keanu Reeves. We appreciate this is a Keanu Reeves fan, probably not the real guy. Um, says, I got a message about my interest in becoming a season ticket holder. I probably can't afford it next season, but I'm hoping for the season after. Would you say it's worth it in case I am able to swing it sooner before the team gets really good?
Well, the answer to that I would say is absolutely. If you can afford it, I think it's something you should do. I would have been a season ticket holder if I wasn't, fortunate enough to get paid to go to these games basically as a season ticket holder in a way. I think it's awesome. And I have never ran and I've run into season ticket holders who are disgruntled because they love this team and they want it to be good. But I can tell you this, I've never run into a season ticket holder who was disappointed that they decided to be a season ticket holder, right? You get into it because you love this team, you love the game, you were bleed Rip City, good or bad, right? So if you can afford it, absolutely. And also, there is no better time to be a season ticket holder than getting in on the ground floor when they're trying to build something special. Everyone can get in and want to be a season ticket holder when they have Dame and they're winning 50 games a year. Everyone wants to be. But when you're in on the ground floor of them building something, I think that's a fun time. I've also said this, Rose and Tara, and I'm sure you kind of think the same way too, is regardless of the wins and losses, I've actually had so much fun covering the team for the last 2 years because of the unknown, right? As good as Dame was and as awesome as it was to watch wins, I probably could have closed my eyes and then hosted a post-game show and been like, yep, the Blazers were down late and Damian Lillard got a last-second shot and he hit it and they won. Like there was no, okay, you need a last-second shot. Who's it going to? Well, it's going to Dame. If they're covering Dame, it's going to CJ. Like we knew the game plan, right? You don't know the game plan right now. Like if it is a 2-point ball game with 2 seconds left tonight in New York as of this recording, do any of you know off the top of your head who the ball is going to? It might be Ant, but what if he's not on the floor? Well, Jeremy's okay. Is it going to Shea? Is it going to Denny? Is 2 going to get the corner? Like that part's intriguing because I feel like I get to watch the game with way wider open eyes than I've ever got to before. So again, if you can get in on that and you can get to all the home games, do it. Absolutely do it.
I love that answer. I'll speak to it as a season ticket holder myself. So I've been a season ticket holder for 3 years. And prior to that, I had a number of seasons where I was a half season ticket holder. Half season ticket holder, you're like you don't get much. I don't even know that you get a break in like price from being a half season ticket holder. When you go up to being a full season ticket holder, the reason for me I wanted to do it and the reason it's panned out for me is because of the perks that we get. So I sit with the third bench up in 317. And full disclosure, I'm probably going to move to a different section next season, not because I don't love the third bench. That's been really fun to hang out with this big group of people. You always know you're going to be sitting with friends. You're going to be sitting with the group that's always going to be actual Blazer fans. You're not going to be surrounded all of a sudden by Laker fans. But I'm just at a time in my life where I feel like I can swing 200 level seats, and so I'm gonna do it. But the things that you get that I like really had no idea. Like I knew that as a season ticket holder there was like an event that gets held where you get to go and meet players, but I didn't know the extent of all of those perks. So you do get stuff, and stuff to me is not as interesting. Like you might get like extra set of glasses or, a coat or a bag or, all kinds of things. And especially I think when the Blazers aren't doing very well, they're really like, here, have more stuff, have more stuff. Just please keep re-upping your tickets. I don't know. That seems like that's how it goes. But the things that you get, like pictures with the rookies, the rookie people who are considered rookie season ticket holders often get a special opportunity to go and like listen to like a little interview, like a special like small group. Maybe there's like 50 people and the rookie comes out and, Casey Holdall might interview the rookie and you get to like ask your fun fan questions like, do you have any pets? Which is my go-to question. Um, but little things like that are so fun, and you just can't put a price on those experiences. And while like it's like my favorite fan event that or season ticket holder event that I've been to is probably the one at Big Al's, not because I like Big Al's, because like I could really care less about what goes on there, although I'm sure it's a wonderful place. But the opportunity to go up to the players and say, thank you, I really appreciate what you do and I really enjoy watching you, that is worth the price that to me that I'm asked to pay to have to be a season ticket holder, to be able to have the, opportunity to like look them in the eye and say, oh my gosh, I have enjoyed you in your time in Portland, and I 100% understand what happened to you when you got iced into your house. Like, we're behind you. And it's just for me, like if that's the kind of thing that you like, and you can swing it and you can afford it, it's totally worth it. So yeah, I guess that's generally my thing. It's like if you can, then I would say it's totally worth it, but not because of maybe the reasons that you think. It's all those other things that you're going to get. And also, I feel like from years past when the Blazers were better, there maybe weren't so many of those opportunities available. So like I don't know, this is just on vibes. But as the team is building and becoming something, the team might be trying a little bit harder to like really wrap their arms around the people who've stuck with the team as they're growing. And so there might be a few more opportunities than when the team is just really, really good and your reward is excellent play, which is also an excellent reward. Like the last few years, we've had a lot of pyrotechnics during the introductions. I don't know that when the Blazers are doing really well, we're going to need pyrotechnics to get us in the building. So joining when the team is rebuilding, if you can, is a great way to go.
Hey, can we just start the petition though to stop with the pumping the smoke in that serves no purpose to the pregame intro? Like,
Oh my God, my daughter hates it.
like
Like I can't see very well.
yeah, like if there were like lasers or something, you can see like let's just like pump it in. And are you trying to create like the fog look because like it's raining and the storms are brewing? I get, but like I'm just sitting there and like this is
But why is there smoke?
why
And it's just fluorescence. It's like fluorescence and smoke.
yeah. And respectfully though, I think they're just they're experimenting because it's like one day it's going to be like fire behind the stanchion, and then the next night it's a firework, and then the next night it's a firework but it's up in the rafter, and you're like, that pick one. Like, are we just having fun? Like they were keeping you on your toes. I don't know. It's just funny.
They're also developing in, the production, the arena production group. They're also on the Development Express figuring out what they're going to be like on their championship run.
Yeah, true.
I will say, so I'm not a season ticket holder. And I'll say like for me, my life circumstances don't really align with being able to be a season ticket holder. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I have a lot of responsibilities at home in the evening. I also like with my daughter getting really into basketball, she wants to be with me a lot of the times when we go. And like I can't take her to 7 p.m. games on a weeknight. Like she goes to school at 8 o'clock in the morning the next day. And um so I'll say if your life circumstances align with it, like I think like in arena experiences are exceptionally fun. But for people like myself, what I tend to do is and now it's easy to do, I will say, because the team is not like, they're still rebuilding. But it's easy to buy like, you know, tickets for my whole family for fewer games and make it more of an experience and really fun. And it's like that's a totally like legit way to do it. If you can't swing being a season ticket holder, and I'll say like sometimes I end up like splurging and buying really awesome tickets. And sometimes, it's really easy to get a ticket like the day of, it's like, and that might not be true later on when the team is really good. But for like right now and consider for my like needs, it's been wonderful and great. But I'll say like maybe one day I'll be a season ticket holder when I'm not thinking about all these things that like my life revolves around my child so much. But I think there's lots of fun ways to do it, and you can make all of those experiences kind of special in your own way. And also just I'll say like I like being in community with you all and seeing you all in real life and waving, and even if I just see you for a second on the concourse, it's just really nice to see people in person.
Yeah, you just ask your daughter. It's like, hey, do you want to go to a Blazer game or do you want Dino Nugs and Go-Gurts? Dino Nugs. I want Dino Nugs. Yep. Okay, well, that's where my money's going. I'm not saying that out of experience or anything. Um,
No,
yeah,
certainly.
plenty of Dino Nugs in the Burkhardt household.
My daughter likes to ask me, like, we'll be like, well, because we'll watch games on TV together and we'll watch and she'll like get ready for bed because it's, the games are go late, past children's bedtimes. And then sometimes she'll like kind of like suspiciously ask me, are they in Portland tonight? Why aren't we there? And I'm like, girl, you got school at 8 o'clock in the morning. We have to have our priorities
my
straight.
my girls got to go to their first game last week, the Cavs game. Now my oldest daughter had been to a game before. My two youngest hadn't been to one, and I brought them on the radio show after the show or after the game, so they were on the post game show with me. And I asked them like, "What was your favorite part of the game?" My oldest, she does cheerleading. She's like, "I love the dancers; they were awesome." My middle child, she gets bored real quick, so I'm like, "What was your favorite part of the game?" She's like, "The popcorn."
I was gonna say the snacks.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, kid. Thanks.
My daughter, if you asked her, would probably be the cotton candy
Right.
or the Dippin' Dots. Dippin' Dots is like, it's the only place that you get Dippin' Dots. It's like, I think of Dippin' Dots as like, that's the children's snack of Moda.
Right.
I'll say when my kids were little, or when they were like, the age of your kids, I was still living in Eugene pretty much. And also we were just, driving around and we just mostly listened to the games. And it wasn't until that they got older that I really started going to games again. I went when I was in college, but it wasn't until they got older that I started going to the games. And it was only one of my sons who really liked to go to the games with me. But it was when he was, probably like 12, 13, 14. He was really into it. And it was really fun because we could go to the part, uh, by where they drive out and, the players would come up and sign autographs. And that was super fun to do. I don't know if they still do that anymore. I'm just like trying to get home after
Right.
the games now that I don't have anybody in tow with me.
So that's it for questions. We just got that one. It's nice to hear what everyone's experiences of the game. I'll just say there's no wrong way to fan. And, I think if that seems like that would enhance your life and you can afford to do it, it sounds like it's a really great fun experience. But there's also lots of other ways to fan as well that feel equally satisfying.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like the only thing that my husband and I do for date night is go to basketball games. Like why would we do anything else? Like that's what we do. We have a great time. We go to the food carts beforehand, get some food, get to go to a game together. It's just a fun activity that we both like to do. So, and I'm able to use my tickets for most. I was like going from a half season to a whole season. I was concerned about whether or not I was going to use all my tickets. And because I was with a group, it was very easy to like swap and trade and make sure that my tickets were being used. Because that's like, I feel a responsibility because like I have a ticket, I got to fill that seat. And so knowing who you can, invite that, you always have your people who are like, I'll go at any time. And I was like that before I got my season tickets. I was the person that anybody could call me at any time. It could be 6:30 and like I have a ticket and I would be like, I will show up. And so that got me used to going to the games. So yeah, so if Keanu Reeves decides to get tickets to the Blazer games, okay, why are there so many fake Keanu Reeves accounts? It's really weird because this is clearly a person because I've been interacting with this person for quite a while since like I've been on Blue Sky. But like every day I get like three fake Keanu Reeves accounts. What
I'm
is with
so
that?
glad you said something because I also have so many fake Keanu Reeves followers, and I don't know where they came from and why he's the guy everybody wants to impersonate on Blue Sky.
I don't know, but that is funny.
I mean, if you were gonna, do you get a lot of them, Chris?
I do not.
So it's women love Keanu Reeves, which I do.
Yeah.
Would I love it if Keanu Reeves was following me? Yes. However, I am smart enough to know that he is not.
Is it because I tweet about John Wick sometimes? Maybe that's why.
You have upset the algorithm.
I don't know, but this particular person though, I know is real because we've interacted a lot, but all the rest of them are just like you are not even close. Should we go into our takes?
Yeah. Okay, so you're a first time guest here, Chris. One of the things we like to end our show with every episode is takes. And this can be your take about literally anything. It can be about the Blazers. It could be about basketball. It could also be about absolutely nothing having to do with anything. And this is where you can just share your opinion on something. It can be hot. It can be cold. It can be whatever you want it to be. And so yeah, we invite you to share your take. It is uh March 30th, 2025. Chris, what's your take?
Wow, this is loaded. The floor is mine. I haven't spoken enough on this thing, and now you want me to have a take. I'm generally a cold take guy, but there's a couple of them. First off, shout out to my very opinionated podcast buddy, if I could even call him that, because he doesn't like to record podcasts anymore. Shout out Keith Feltner Smith and the Trailcasters podcast. Rest in peace. Okay. He likes to get on rants, right? And he got on one. My friend Keith, and if you guys are in the same boat, that's okay. But my friend Keith absolutely despises college sports, and he doesn't like football. He does. Oh man, he does not like football. And I'm a football guy. I like football. But I'm going to tell you, man, March Madness is awesome. I don't care if you don't like it, Keith. March Madness is awesome. I watch these games. I have no rooting interest in Tennessee. I don't care about Duke, but I love them. Cooper Flag is fun. I love the chaos. And I said this on our Discord the other day because friend of the show, everyone knows the sheriff of Portland. Seth comes in and tries to defend him. He's like, well, to be fair, some of these games have been pretty bad. I said, you can't say that with a straight face when your favorite team professionally has both won and lost by 50 or more points in the same season. I hate to break it to you guys, but NBA basketball is bad too. You just love it, okay? And so you're going to defend it, right? And college basketball is terrible. I do not like college basketball for the game. The game is boring. It's sloppy. It's a mess. But as a University of Oregon grad, you slap green and yellow on it and you put the little duck logo on it. I'm going to watch it intensely and I'm going to root as if I have been rooting for this team since like 1905. And I know everything. I can't even tell you the Ducks starting roster right now. That's how little I care about college basketball. But come March Madness, I am locked in. Okay. So Keith, I know you don't like it. I know you don't like college sports. You don't think they should be good. You want amateurism back. And let's not act like amateurism was ever a thing. Reggie Bush lost his Heisman because he was getting paid under the table. Everybody's been getting paid under the table. They can just now do it legally and take taxes from them. That's the whole difference, right? Okay. But college basketball and college sports are amazing. And again, you can't say that you don't like college basketball because the basketball is bad and then simultaneously defend the Boston Celtics chucking up 53 pointers a game and the Blazers losing by 60 points multiple times under the Chauncey Billups tenure, by the way. So I don't know if that was a hot enough take or a cold enough take, but that's my take. College sports are awesome. The pageantry. I was also a Oregon marching band member, so that I feel like I'm specially connected to the aura of college sports. I'm pretty sure some of those high notes we played helped the Ducks win a few football games. It's true. It happens. College sports are amazing, and I love them.
I love that take. And I would like to add it's not my take, but I would like to say that I think NBA teams or NFL, but I'm speaking specific about NBA teams should consider getting a band.
Some of them do. The Baltimore Ravens have one. I believe the Washington Commanders are the only two that do.
Okay.
But marching bands are awesome.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
They are. And I would enjoy watching like a band section at a Blazer game. It doesn't have to be every game, but wouldn't that be fun to like every once in a while for a game have a band? I think that would be like a marching band. Yeah. The Grizzlies have a lot of music at their games, like performers that come out like at halftime and do performances and stuff. But I want to see like a little section with the marching band. Maybe it could be like the One More Time Around band, so you could play in it.
Yeah, I don't know.
What did you play?
I was a saxophone player, and then my last 2 years in the Oregon March Band, I was a drum major. So I was all the conductor. I was having all the fun.
Nice.
I don't know if my embouchure is set anymore to play that saxophone, but I could try.
Oh, that's super cool. I love that.
Talk about Memphis having a bunch of musical acts. The totally random one that I think is so funny is during that playoff series in New Orleans, which was 2018 or whatever. New Orleans halftime performance was New Orleans' own Ja Rule, right? So halftime at a NBA game, and you're a big fine woman when you back that ass up. That's what the halftime show was at a New Orleans Pelicans game. I'm like, what? are we doing here, Ja Rule? I think your time has passed. That song is terrible. Move on.
I have a point of order here, Chris. That song is not Ja Rule. That is Juvenile, my friend.
Sorry. Juvenile, right?
That's
Sorry.
Juvenile.
I messed it up. I'm so sorry. Sorry. I'm not a friend to the rap game. I do like Tech Nine. I do enjoy Tech Nine and Eminem. I don't know why I said Ja Rule. I'm not. My rap beefs are bad. Juvenile. Excuse me. That's how locked in I was. So thank you for fixing me and correcting me. I will so totally admit that I am not hip to that game. But I was more like, okay, what do we? That proves my point, right? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? This is a bit wild. We do need more marching bands, though, Tara. Those are things I know. I know 4/4s. I know 3/4s. I know time signatures. I know concert B flats. See, I know those. I know.
I love it.
Bring me on here, and I make a fool of myself at the end. And keep it.
That's
in.
okay.
You were excited, and we got it fixed. It happens.
Hey, like when I called this, like when I called Cooper Flag, Cooper Cup. I names are hard. Mm-hmm. Names are hard.
They're hard.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who any of those artists are. So you are ahead of me. Rose, I'm going to jump in with my take because we're running out of time. This is not going to be a super long one. I just listened to the Mike Richman's interview with the president of basketball. What's his name? McGowan. It's not Bryce McGowan's. Speaking of names,
Chris McGowan.
Chris McGowan. Yeah. And he was talking about the upgrades to the arena. I'm a little worried about what the Blazers are going to do with the scoreboard. I'm not ready to let go of the hustle board. And I'm excited for a renovation of the Jumbotron and making it bigger. Cause like I said, my eyes are getting worse. I would like to have, a big Jumbotron, but one of the things that I love about the hustle board and the stats that are in the arena right now is that they're there all the time. And you can look at them and see them at any time. And every other arena that I've been to that has been updated, the stats change. And so you have to wait for them to come back around. And I don't want to wait for them to come back around. Because if I'm waiting for them to come back around, I'm looking at that and I'm not looking at the game. So my take is that I hope the Blazers leave something static in the arena that is not part of this Jumbotron thing. So we don't have to look away from the game in order to check what is going on stats wise.
I hope so too. But now it's my time to shine. All right. Ja Rule didn't do that interview. And neither did Chris McGowan's. He doesn't work for the Blazers anymore. I think you mean Dwayne Hankins, the president of operations. That's right. Go ahead. Brush the shoulder off. Jay-Z, right? Did I get that one right? I'm trying.
Well, Dwayne Hankins.
Jay-Z and Ja Rule are both from New York, so.
Yeah.
Well, and I threw out McGowan's because I was thinking about Bryce McGowan. So
I'm just playing. I'm having fun because
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
That's fair.
So Blazers don't mess up the hustle board.
Real bad. That is punishable by law, I believe, for that mistake I made. Yours is passable. No, I agree with you. I hope they keep some good stats, add some stats, make it static so it doesn't change. I also hope it's just all good because man, one thing about the new arenas though is they do have all the stats and it's beautiful. And man, Portland is just lagging a little bit behind, and they need to pick that up. But I did not realize, Tara, that the minute they announced it, I did not understand that there was such a respect for the hustle board. People want that.
Are you kidding?
It's love the hustle board.
Hey, keep it, baby.
Listen, I'll say this. When we went to the pumpkin patch together, Tara, this year for the season ticket holder pumpkin patch thing, when we were driving, my family was driving there, we drove past the Aurora Airport, and across the street from the Aurora Airport is the PGE Park sign. So if you are ever looking for the hustle board, if it disappears, maybe it's going to be in the same field that PGE Park sign is rotting in right now.
Oh my gosh, gross. I drove by that a few months ago, and I had no idea I was like, is that the PGE Park sign? Like, it's just like in like some dude's driveway across from the airport or something. Like, what? That is a piece of Portland history. What is it doing? Just like right. We need to have like the neon graveyard like Las Vegas does. Like put up all your signs somewhere. Put that outside. Put that in the See, nostalgia matters. Like if that was like outside of what is now Providence Park, people could pay their respect to the PG Park sign. Yeah. So if you're gonna take down the hustle board, that's fine, but put it somewhere. I saw someone say put it in like the main concourse and still have it active. It might not be in the arena, but you can go take selfies with the hustle board. Like,
Yeah. Or
Put it in,
outside.
PG Park sign though. My gosh, what a pull.
put it in Dr. Jack's or whatever. Like put it somewhere. Like somewhere so that we can see it because like eventually we're gonna be like, whatever happened to that thing? And then it's gonna be rusting in a field somewhere.
All right, Rose, what's your take?
Well, my take was also going to be March Madness related, but it's going to be on the women's side. And I was just gonna, my take was going to be like, I can't wait for Paige to get to the WNBA. I think Paige is so cool and like such a good vibe, such a good ball player. Like I'm so excited for the like as we wind down the NBA season, it's like about time to wind up the WNBA season and I'm trying to get really excited about that. One because I love it and two because our team like we are one season away from our team coming here. And I watched like a lot of the women's games and I was like, man, I hope Paige is a star. I hope that we keep having these stars kind of come out and like show why everybody likes women's sports. The momentum feels good, and like I'll say, like I was devastated to see what happened to Juju Watkins. I hope that she makes a full recovery and that injury is an uneventful recovery for her because like she's also I think going to be a star. And wouldn't it be great to really see this momentum pick up and everybody realize that WNBA is so fun. It's like, as I told Tara before, it's like the Housewives meets sports because the drama is so good. If you like player drama, there's player drama. You want to know who used to date who and who requested a date, a trade because their ex is on a team or whatever. Like, you got tons of that, and the ball is fun. Like, I'm so excited for the WNBA season. I'm so excited for Paige to get there. I'm so excited for what the next few, like the outlook for the next few seasons are, because we're going to be expanding for the next few seasons. It's going to be a blast.
Yes, I'm with you. And I said that's my only gripe with Caitlin Clark. And people think you're a Caitlin Clark hater, and I'm not. I just hate the narrative that people who haven't paid attention to women's sports throw that Caitlin Clark is the only reason that women's basketball is popular, and she's the only good women's basketball player. Like Paige has been phenomenal forever and had a devastating ACL tear, and is still an absolute baller. Juju is going to heal up and turn the league on its head. I am so excited for. I hate to say this as a Duck fan, but I'm excited for USC next year because Clackamas's finest, Jazzy Davidson, will be out there. One of the best high school basketball players in the entire country. And unfortunately lost the state championship because their team had an 18-point lead and Tualatin came back thanks to a freshman point guard, by the way, who just lit the place up, had like 26 points to lead all scores. Phenomenal. But man, Jazzy Davidson, if you guys haven't had a chance to see her, she will be highlighted at the Nike Hoop Summit, which is pretty phenomenal. But oh man, the USC is getting another fantabulous star in Jazzy, and there's no doubt in my mind that she'll be in the league one day too, representing the PNW.
Oh, that's awesome. Exciting. Yeah, I'm excited for all of that. Well, everyone, we did it. Chris, will you tell? We talked about all the shows that you're on, but you also have a podcast. Would you like to tell us about that and anywhere else that we can find your work?
Yes. So obviously you can follow me on social, Twitter or Bluesky, Chris J. Burkhardt. I use them both. I love that Bluesky app though. It's old Twitter and it's beautiful. And it's so nice. You can follow me there. And then of course you can listen to me 2 hours before every single Trailblazers game on Rip City Radio 620, Blazers Game Day, getting you prepped for the game. In fact, as of this recording, I'll have a show in about a half hour's time. Got to do that. Oh, and don't be confused by the name Rip City Radio. Okay. You don't have to have a radio. You don't got to be in your car. Download the iHeartRadio music app, have it at your fingertips. We're on YouTube as well, so you can listen there. I also have the fifth quarter after every Blazers game, breaking it down. Most of the time, we just get into random food rants because we just want to have fun. And then, of course, Courtside Mondays, which I will have an episode on Monday. Every Monday that the Blazers aren't playing. Not confusing at all. And then, yes, the 1977 podcast, a podcast that runs 19 minutes and 77 seconds long in honor of your 1977 World Championship Blazers. Rose has coined it as her shopping podcast because it runs about the same amount of time as she goes shopping. I apologize that I haven't recorded as many, so she doesn't get to listen to them when she shops, but I'll try to get some more out there. My schedule's just hectic. Between high school championships and the NBA, I don't know where I find time to sleep. So I'm like, you ever see that old episode of The Simpsons where Homer has two jobs and he gets into bed and he lays down, he pulls his covers up, and as soon as the cover hits his neck, his alarm goes off and he hits it and gets up and goes. That's how I feel sometimes. So you know what? The podcast will get out there. I promise. They're just not as frequent as I would like.
It's fine. My family's just starving because I haven't been able to shop since you stopped posting podcasts. What you need to do is I will start recording more often. I need you to just text me your shopping list, okay? So as you're listening, I'll be like, and what I really liked about Scoot Henderson the other day is he's not boring like white bread, 2 loaves of white bread,
and a stick of butter.
Yeah, and a stick of butter. Like he's not boring like that. Like he spices it up, man. He is like a taquito, frozen taquitos. Like every pun and analogy will be your shopping list, as you know, subliminally make sure you don't forget any.
I can't wait for this episode to come out. Rose, you better do this because I want to see this. That is going to be amazing. Well, thank you, Chris, for joining us today. Thanks to everyone who listens to We Have a Take. You can find us at We Have a Take on Bluesky. You can find me at TCB Biggs on Bluesky, and you can find Rose at Rose L. Harding on Bluesky. We are going to go into somewhat of a less regular schedule. We're going to take the next couple of weeks off. We're planning on coming back on hopefully the 12th or 13th. We'll get an episode out, and then we're probably going to have a little hiatus. So it'll be a little bit irregular, and then we'll be back full strength later, probably like at the end of the summer, beginning of the fall. So yeah, just wanted to let you know that our schedule is going to get a little funky for a little bit. Anything else you want to add, Rose?
Nope. All I want to say is go Blazers.